Yeah. It's a great night because if you want to. We just. I know, I'm surprised.
Good evening. The Puyallup City Council meeting, February the 27th, 2024 will come to order. Will everyone please rise for a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we would like to acknowledge any of our students that are from any of the high schools or junior highs that happen to be present this evening. If there are these students, please identify yourself. I understand. Could you please stand and state which school you're from? Let's start with your name. Go ahead. Excellent. Thank you for being here this evening. We like to acknowledge them because they are the future leaders of Puyallup, and they will be the ones sitting in these seats one day. I'd like to have the chief clerk, the clerk, please read the roll call.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Gilliam.
Present.
Councilmember Whitting.
Present.
Councilmember Dorr.
Present.
Councilmember Adler.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson.
Present.
Deputy Mayor King.
Deputy Mayor is absent due to family business.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Castro.
Present. Okay, with that, let's move to the first agenda item, which is the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, let's move on to item number 2, consideration of minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Second.
the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Excellent. Now moving to number 3, this is why all of you are here this evening. Thank you for being here. We have 2 presentations, both of them extremely dear to all of us here on the dais. And I am looking forward to reading these proclamations. What we will do is this. We will have the proclamations, and then we will have a presentation by Pierce Transit, and then we will have citizen comments. Afterwards, we will have a break, at which time all of us can meet together and have one large photo opportunity with any council member you wish to have at that time. But right now, I would like to read the Women's History Month proclamation. And I have to note this before I read this. This was actually written by Councilmember Lauren Adler, a very new council member, just recently elected. And we want to thank her for doing that. When she presented this proclamation to us, it was accepted completely unedited. And I want to thank you for doing an excellent job of doing that. She will, by the way, in that interim, have more copies of this proclamation to distribute to all of you who are not actually specifically recognized, which I will do in a moment. So with that, whereas March marks Women's History Month, a time to honor the contributions, achievements, and resilience of women throughout history. And whereas the city of Puyallup recognizes the invaluable role women have played in serving, working, and growing in our community, including 153 female city employees and nearly 200 female small business owners within the city, or 2,000, excuse me. And whereas the city of Puyallup acknowledges the diverse contributions of women from all walks of life, including those who have made significant strides in education, business, healthcare, the arts, public service, and whereas this includes female Puyallup Tribe of Indian leaders, City of Puyallup female veteran and active duty military members, female police officers and first responders, female athletes, female mayors, female city council members, a female municipal court judge, female state representatives, female school district superintendents, female community college presidents, female chamber of commerce leaders, and the first female chief executive officer of the Washington State Fair in its history, which she is here this evening. Whereas women have been leaders in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and especially the peace movements, which create a more fair and just society for all. And whereas, despite their contributions, the role of women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of history. And whereas, as a city, we affirm our commitment to promoting and empowering women and girls by creating increased opportunities for women in every aspect of society, especially within the city. Now, therefore, I, Jim Castema, Mayor of the City of Puyallup, Washington, do hereby proclaim March 2024 as Women's History Month in the City of Puyallup. I witnessed whereof and have hereto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Puyallup to be affixed this 27th day of February 2024. Congratulations, women of Puyallup. but there's more. I now want to acknowledge some specific women, female leaders in this community, and we will actually give them a copy of the proclamation in the proclamation folder that is very official. And I'm going to start, first of all, with Municipal Court Judge Andrea Beal. And if you could come forward, please. Thank you. Go ahead, right there. And then Pierce College Chancellor, Dr. Julie White. Puyallup Sumner Chamber of Commerce CEO, Tara Doyle Enkling. Enking, excuse me. Washington State Fair CEO, Renee McLean. Former Puyallup City Council member, Nicole Martineau. And former City Council member, Heather Shadko. And then finally, former Mayor Kathy Turner. And the reason why I'm saving her for last is because she actually would like to share a few words with all of us. Now I'm going to come around and we're all going to get a photo together. I think actually, how would you like this, Eric?
Squished together.
Okay. Hey, thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Castema. Kathy Turner, former mayor, District 1. I would first of all like to thank Councilmember Lauren Adler for honoring Women's History Month by placing it on tonight's agenda. And it's so very nice to see so many people here, and especially women this evening. I thought it might be fun to share with you a little Puyallup women's history that you might not be aware of. The city of Puyallup was incorporated in 1888, which was found illegal, and was legally incorporated in 1890. I was the second woman mayor in the city. Julie Dorr III, in 134 or 136 years, no matter which way you decide which year to use, we have had only 3 female mayors. We have had 1 female city manager, 1 female city attorney, 1 female judge, and this is only the 4th time in the history of this city that we've had 3 women serving on the council at the same time. I'm reminded of some odd, interesting incidents that still make me chuckle. When management passed a rule that denim was not allowed in the workplace. Well, it didn't last long because the male employees came to assist the female employees to have management reconsider. And remember, it was just 1989 that Rotary was required to allow women. The saying comes to mind, we've come a long way. But have we? The current system only allowing a mayor to serve 2 years without any exceptions and rotating through council is antiquated. I served 18 years on council, 3 terms as mayor. However, when an all-male council took over, they changed the rules, limiting that service to just 2 years. I personally believe that term limits in any format at local level do more harm than good. And many people wonder why we don't elect our mayor. Not changing the form of government, but allowing citizens to vote for the mayor like they do in our capital city, Olympia. There may be a few people in the audience tonight that are saying, is there a Men's History Month? Well, there is no need for a Men's History celebration because the accomplishments of men are well chronicled, well respected, and well taught. Puyallup has elected a fantastic group of leaders sitting here tonight at the dais. And this council is ready and able to shape the future of Puyallup. And with us this evening are an amazing group of women commemorating and encouraging the study, the observance, and the celebration of the vital role of women in America. Let's recognize them. And we did just recognize many, but I'm going to share with you a few others that are in the audience tonight. Therese Pasquire, the President Board of Trustees of Pierce College and the APRI Health Market Vice President. Kim Fields, excellent Executive Director of All Things Sports. Shelley Willis, Senior Director at Workforce. Let's be sure I'm not missing anybody. Tammy Montevideo from Arts Downtown. Joella Oldfield, the curator of the Oldfield Museum. And many others out here that should be recognized. Arla Gustafson from Newell Hunt, and Dana Cogan, the Executive Director of Pierce Conservation. But so many others. I think all the women should stand and we should recognize them with a round of applause.
Kathy, thank you for those fine words. And keep in mind, when we do have a break here shortly, Councilmember Adler does have additional copies, and I'm not sure there are enough copies for everyone, Lauren. But I do want to thank all of you for being here this evening. And former Mayor Kathy Turner is absolutely correct that all of you deserve tremendous acknowledgement for the contribution to this city. I would now like to read a proclamation about Fred Oldfield, and we have his daughter here this evening. It's actually really a very tremendous thing that this evening we have two very important proclamations for the city of Puyallup. The Fred Oldfield proclamation has a little bit of personal meaning. Both my parents, about 40 years ago, dreamed of owning a Fred Oldfield. My dad was a mountain climber, but he also dreamed of being a cowboy out on the Western Plains and very much romanticized about that. And I saw many black and white movies to that effect when I was very young. So he really loved Fred Oldfield's paintings. And about 40 years ago, they were at a display of his paintings at the Tacoma Mall, and there was a silent auction. And my parents were of very modest means, and they put amount into the silent auction thinking they're never going to get this painting. And then they received a call that they did. And my parents, I still remember when they got the call, they didn't have the money. So they had to go to a bank. They had to get a loan. And they did that. And that painting now has been proudly passed on to me and hangs in my living room. And it's very similar to a painting you see up there on the monitor. So again, very special. My parents went on to own 3 Fred Oldfield paintings and became very good friends with him. So with that, whereas Fred Oldfield was born on March 18th, 1918 in Alfalfa, Washington, and he was one of 9 children. And whereas Fred was raised on the Yakima Indian Reservation near Toppenish, and his youth was filled with adventure as he lived the life of a cowboy with covered wagons, galloping horses, and starting fires with cow chips. And whereas as a young man, Fred had an array of experiences, including gold mining, boxing, farming, hunting, and working as a cowhand, all of which would influence his paintings. And whereas often called an unconventional man, Fred went against all odds to spend his life living out his passion for painting, and he will forever be known as one of the premier painters of the American West in the United States. And whereas Fred was always active in his Pacific Northwest community, and he used his talents to raise funds for many causes, including kidney dialysis research, the Emergency Food Network, and a variety of scholarships for students in need. And whereas Fred enjoyed sharing his love of painting with children, and he was forever grateful for the looks he saw in their eyes as he told them stories of the days on the range, telling tales around the campfire, and eating a can of beans from a chuck wagon. And whereas Fred believed in the power of positive outlook on life, making a friend out of everyone he met and sharing a smile and a story with his friends and his neighbors. And whereas the Fred Oldfield Western Heritage and Art Center was built in 2002, dedicated to the preservation of Fred's dream to share his love of life, Western art, and the history of the American West with all generations. And whereas Fred Oldfield passed away on February 24th, 2017, saddling up his horse and tipping his hat for the last time. And whereas the Fred Oldfield Western Heritage and Art Center will commemorate Fred's life with a breakfast celebration and fundraiser for the center at the Puyallup Fairgrounds on March 9th. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Puyallup City Council celebrate and honor Fred Oldfield, the person on his birthday, by declaring March 18th Fred Oldfield Day in the city of Puyallup, acknowledging his invaluable contribution to our city and beyond, and recognizing that the history, passion, and the art of Fred Oldfield will live on for generations. I, witness thereof, have hereto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Puyallup to be affixed this 27th day of February 2024. Mayor Jim Castema, congratulations. I would like to have Joella Oldfield come forward. I will give her this, and if you'd like Joella to say a few words, feel free.
I do want to say a few words. I want to say thank you to the community that Fred so dearly loved. You have all embraced him so beautifully. And every day you are helping us make his dreams come true. We now have 150 students that come every week for art classes, which is Fred's dream. He was all about the kids. For those of you that know him, that was his priority. And his last 10 years of his life, he gave half of every single penny he made to support the children and the fair scholarship for their education. And anyone who came to him and said, Fred, we need this for the kids, he was right there. So thank you to all of you. Thank you, Jim, so much. And we hope we are here to stay. Thank you.
At this point, we would like to have Pierce Transit come forward and give us a presentation on local transit. So we'll continue. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This is by far the most esteemed group I've ever spoken in front of who wants me to be done as soon as possible. So I'm going to keep that in mind, but we're glad that we're able to come today, talk a little bit about where we are as a transit agency and what we've done. We'd like to start next slide with who we are. Just a reminder, Pierce Transit is your local service provider. We operate in 13 municipalities as well as, I guess I'm the next slide guy. Now, we operate in 13 municipalities, including part of, can you hear it? Yep. Part of unincorporated Pierce County. About 70% of Pierce County is actually within our service area. That includes part of JBLM as well. We offer 4 services: local bus that you see quite a bit in Puyallup. Also our paratransit or complimentary disability access service. Also the 14th largest van pool or rideshare program in the country. At its peak before COVID, we had 350 vans on the road every day. Right now, we're at about 220, operating about 500,000 van pool trips for folks going to work together every day. 300 miles in our service area. And to date, we're expecting to be just under the 6 million trip mark collectively for 2024. Last year at 5.5. We like to point out where we were pre-COVID. We were collectively just under 10 million in 2019. We also remind folks that much like some of our, or one of our other partners in the region, we cannot collect a number of taxes. The only one that we can actually collect is sales tax. So about 85% of our annual funding comes from sales tax. of which we collect 0.6% of the 0.9% that we are legislatively authorized to collect. We do so in addition to collecting grants and fare box. So for us, when we are looking at revenue increases, we haven't raised fares in 14 years, but we do have a conversation about what sales tax should be, and we'll talk about that a little bit at the end of this presentation. We are also a partner with Sound Transit. So Sound Transit is a regional provider that operates trips in and out of Pierce County, King County, and Snohomish County. We are their contract service provider in Pierce County. So any Sound Transit vehicle that you see in and out of Pierce County is maintained in our Lakewood base and is operated by folks that live here in Pierce County. We have a number of important visions and priorities. I think that number one thing obviously is to provide safe and reliable transportation. An interesting thing that has taken place for us, I think, over the history of our agency, we are an agency that believes very strongly in sustainability. We actually kicked off some CNG or compressed natural gas use in our fleet in 1986. The vast majority of our fleet continues to be CNG. We're also one of the first agencies in the state to roll out electric vehicles, of which we have 9 currently. We're also invested not just in talking about equity, but we roll this into the planning framework that we use when implementing new routes, when evaluating routes to improve or to add service to. And it's an important thing for us on the base too. We have a DEI officer. We also work through equity in terms of salary for gender and for different groups that we have at the agency. So it's something that we're continuing to talk. We're also invested heavily in the City of Tacoma's equity framework. That's something that we use on a daily basis to evaluate the routes we're running, the schedules that we run. And one of the things that we're incorporating into our planning work recently is making sure that the infrastructure that we put out, whether it's a shelter, a bench, or anything else that folks would use to board our bus, is also put through this equity planning framework. We have a number of community partnerships. I think that it's important for us to talk about apprenticeships with this group. And I say that because if I leave any presentation without mentioning to you or the people behind me that we would love to have people apply for jobs at Pierce Transit, I probably won't be let in the door tomorrow. We are about 100 operators short right now. So the more people we get interested in this work, the more we can roll out service and get back to our pre-COVID levels. And one of the things that we've done the last few years is to kick off an apprenticeship program through our maintenance department. We struggle to bring in journey level mechanics, and so we are attempting to train them at the base. And we have a pretty strong relationship with community colleges in the area, but certainly something that we would like to improve on. Major initiatives I think you're probably most interested in. First one is our first last connections. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but that's something that started here in Puyallup in November with our Puyallup runner service, and then high capacity transit or BRT or enhanced bus. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. We're invested in some pretty significant capital programs, and we, I think, sometimes look to the east side of the county a little bit later than we should, and we're looking to correct that in the last couple of years. High capacity transit, as we've talked to you about in the past, was bus rapid transit or BRT. That project is currently operating or is in the design process along Pacific Avenue, stretching from Spanaway at our new Spanaway Transit Center that will open in a few months, all the way to downtown Tacoma. We had a very heavy investment there. We were looking at about a $185 million project the last time we talked to you about it. Unfortunately, the last few years, that project ballooned in cost to over $300 million. And about 6 months ago, our board made the decision to pause that portion of the project and actually redeploy resources to do an enhanced bus option. That is going to kick off an iterative process for us April 1st. We will roll out service that will overlay or not take place of Route 1, which is our busiest route, but it will get people from Spanaway to downtown Tacoma and back each day 22 minutes faster than the Route 1 can do currently. And it does so by getting people from point A to point B faster. So we're using some techniques to get people on and off the bus. We're also targeting only the stops that we see as major connections. So on that map that is in front of you, you can see on the right, the southern end, we make 14 stops between Spanaway and Tacoma Dome Station, which is the largest regional transit hub. Also providing some improvements in the future when we are able to secure funds to do some safety upgrades along that corridor. For us, it's going to be the first step for us improving what we think will be a very long-held primary transit system for us. The hope is that when folks look at Pierce Transit in the future, they can see a high capacity transit that gets people where they want to go at a speed that's comparable to or computable with a single occupancy vehicle. And if you look on the far right, you will see that we have a very lofty dream, and one that I think council has talked about in years past, about doing some form of high capacity transit on Meridian. That is something that we are interested in now. So we're actually pursuing state funds, not to do the planning work for that, but to do the initial legwork on some infrastructure improvements. We are hoping to come back at some point and talk about transit signal priority upgrades that we can partner with the city on and improve not just what we do as transit, but also getting those buses through intersections and out of the way of general purpose traffic. I'm going to pause on this one for a little bit because I think this is probably most important to this group. We started a runner program. So for us, runner is a small vehicle program where people are able to utilize an app or call in to our office and request a ride from point A to point B. Hopefully point B is a transit center or a bus line, but we're fine that people just need to get where they need to go. Initially, we started this in areas like Spanaway and that Midland area where we do not have service. So it was important for us to fill in the gaps where people couldn't access buses because they were too far away to walk. We also did one on the Tide Flats and Ruston. In November, as many of you know, we launched the Puyallup Runner, and it was an overlay service for us. This was an opportunity for us to test what the runner could do if we put it where there's already bus service. And for us, this is a difficult issue because we don't want to take away from bus ridership. And I happen to bring our service provider from VIA with me tonight, Rob. Another major improvement for us is we switched service providers from one company to the industry leader, VIA. So they are not just operating the Puyallup Runner now, they're operating all of our runner system. And what we're going to do in April is we're going to launch a few more of these. So we're converting some routes that were lower performing, and during COVID actually had ridership drop to a level that we were concerned that those communities weren't getting the service they needed. What we've seen with Runner in Puyallup is something we were hoping to see. So we started out in November. We'd maintain about 300 to 400 trips per month with the Route 425, which Runner is going to replace. Since November, the Puyallup Runner is actually 60% higher ridership than the Route 425. And the main reason is because it gets people where they want to go when they want to go. And we extended the span of the day. So the runner runs 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. every single day. As I mentioned, ridership is 60% greater on the runner than the 425. We are out working with riders of the 425 now to let them know that our board decided to pull back that service and actually reduce it to no service and replace it with the runner starting at our end of March service change. So we expect you'll get some calls, but know that we're out riding that system and talking to every single customer that we can. We're also working with folks who have needs for disability service and making sure that they understand how they can access either the shuttle or the runner, which for us is ADA accessible as well. A couple other important projects that you should know about. Before you call the office, we are aware that there's a lot of missing glass, and this is an ongoing problem, not just for us, but for the industry. During the pandemic, we were going to switch bus shelter types, and we were not able to do that because of some supply chain issues. And then when we went to replace the glass, we were unable to obtain it for almost an entire year. So we're out now. We started about a year ago. We had 60% of our 550 bus shelters that were missing at least one pane of glass. A quarter of them were missing all their glass. And we're out now replacing glass as soon as we get it. And we're also switching to what we feel will be a more easily replaceable glass in the future. And that's something that will roll out as soon as we can get those supplies in. I also mentioned that new transit center. It's a little bit of a distance from Puyallup, but I think it's important to note we went around and did some upgrades. Last few years, we improved the transit center at South Hill Mall. We're also out building transit centers for the first time in about 25 years. So that Spanaway Transit Center, you'll get an invite to. We will open that up hopefully at the end of Q1 this year. I mentioned funding at the beginning. I just want to note this. When we talk about funding, we're at 0.6%. And if you look at comparable agencies to us, and here you see Community Transit in Everett and Spokane Transit on the east side of the state, they're at 1.2%, or 0.8%. If you look up and down I-5, You see intercity transit at 1.2. King County Metro is above 1%. Sound Transit, in addition to the other taxes, they're at 1.4%. Kitsap Transit is at 1.1%. We put this up to let folks know that we hope you understand that you're getting good value for the money that people are investing in the system. And as we have these conversations about what else we can do or what more we can do for the community, at some point we have to have a conversation about how we're raising revenue and what the importance is for transit in the community. With that, I'm going to try to answer questions and get out of the way so you can do your break. I do appreciate that you had us in though.
I appreciate that, Ryan. Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions? I would just like to emphasize to the audience that this runner program, in essence, is Uber. It's kind of an Uber type system that if you go and you download the app onto your phone, you can say, I want to go to the South Hill Mall, for example, and you can go ahead and put in that request, and a van in about 20 minutes will show up to your home. And anywhere you go within this entire area, Puyallup area, I believe it is $2. Is that correct? So that's a flat $2 rate to get anywhere. So it's basically on-demand transportation. And we're somewhat of an experimental area. This isn't throughout Pierce County, but it is in Puyallup. So remember that, get the Runner app on your phone and then use it as you would like an Uber type
That's it.
service. Councilmember Gilliam, did you have a question?
You answered it. I was curious what the via this runner was charging. So that's impressive. $2 per trip. Well done.
Yeah, excellent. Councilmember Dorr. Councilmember Dorr, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ryan, thank you for your presentation. I have a question. I have a constituent that lives in Crystal Ridge, which is east of Shaw Road, and that area is not currently serviced by this runner. Is there plans to expand that?
There are plans every time we talk to somebody. So I think that what I'll do after this is try to get information on where that person is. And if we can't get a contact, we give them a call. Anytime we go out, as the mayor mentioned, people understand the deal that they're getting for the service. So we have plans to see how things are going. And as we mentioned, we're about 3 or 4 months in right now. And I would expect that we will expand as soon as we figure out where the most ridership comes. So that comment helps us out because we're trying to plot those areas to see where we get most ridership in the future.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions? Let me just end with this comment that I know of some other countries have experimented with this actually instead of using buses. They just use a on-demand service like an Uber, et cetera, and found that people really use it and they like it. So, and again, at $2 a ride, that's very economical too, especially for senior citizens. So again, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that very much. Okay, with that, we're going to have citizen comments. And I would like to have the city clerk go ahead and read the guidelines for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This part of the meeting is for general citizen comments. Please reserve any public hearing testimony to that section of the agenda. The mayor will call on those who have provided their names in advance. Then the mayor will call for other citizens who wish to speak. For the record, please state your name and address or city council district in which you reside. Please direct your comments to the council as a whole, not individual council members. All comments are limited to 3 minutes. The clerk will provide verbal notice when only 30 seconds remain. As a reminder, this portion of the meeting is council's opportunity to hear from the community and not a time to engage in debate. Lastly, per state law, this public comment period cannot be used to speak in support of or in opposition to a ballot measure or individual candidacy, and no such comments will be allowed.
Okay, thank you, City Clerk. I would like to, before we ask the first person to come up, I do want to acknowledge someone in the audience who was not acknowledged in the Women's Month proclamation. A very important person in the past history of Puyallup, Dr. Michelle Johnson, who was in the front row here. She's the former Pierce College Chancellor. And I believe you just had a sports facility named after you too. So you must have had a lot of sports background. So anyway, thank you for being here. I do want to acknowledge you. Okay, the first person who would like to provide public comment is Annette Kenyon. And if you could come forward. And Annette, I have to tell you, I read your request here and you have a question there and I'll answer that for you on your way up. The question is, who is our council member concerned about Fifth Street and Milwaukee Bridge? Well, that would be me. I live right down about half a block from there. So your comments will be very, very well taken, please.
Probably don't recognize me, but I recognize
Oh, okay.
many years ago,
Did.
the summer reading program for children. And at Callis, the old Callis.
Yes.
And then we moved over to the Memorial Building. It was a wonderful summer program. The last time I saw you though, you were on a motorized vehicle.
Oh. Call a segue.
But I came to that because we don't know what's going on in Puyallup. And we live at southeast off of Pioneer and near Shaw Road. But Sumner, we know everything about Sumner. We get the news about Sumner all the time. We get nothing to all of it. So I guess I should have come soon. I was active in the library and center here for many years. The district was so good to us. They sent us down to Ocean Shores. No charge for summer programs. That was fabulous because we were volunteers. The reason I'm here tonight, wow, I had no idea all these people would be here. I thought it was just about maybe a dozen. The road from Sumner to Puyallup that goes by the cannery ends at Fifth and Milwaukee. And our car's kind of low, but so are a lot of other cars. An accident's going to happen. And I've looked at it, if something can be done to avoid that accident before it happens. That would be my request. The other one's kind of a minimal one that's a neighbor, and we don't want to get into trouble, but they
30 seconds.
it's a burn ban. Burn ban.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate those, Annette. First of all, I would ask city manager that I believe it's a county decision as far as the burn ban. And that what we will do is I will make sure that we get back to you with the specifics about that. And as far as that particular intersection, I'm very knowledgeable of that. And we have in fact taken action to try and make that safe. Having said that, the other day I did see an accident there. So I appreciate you bringing this to light and I'll make sure we have staff look at it, okay? Thank you, Annette. Appreciate that. We wish you well. Thank you. Kim Field. And keep in mind, as she's coming forward, when the time is up, we will have, the city clerk will go ahead and tell you you have 30 seconds left and then tell you at which time we have to end the comments. And I have to be pretty insistent because we have to treat everyone equally on public comments. So I'm not trying to be rude, but just keep that in mind. So Kim, please proceed. Yes.
I'm Kim Field. I'm the executive director of All Things.
Thank you. Councilmember Gillian, for listening to me about this proclamation. Thank you to the city council for hearing our voice. I like the fact that you supported us. And I want to talk to you about inspiration. And where does it come from? Comes from you, comes from these people, comes from these people. You know where I find my strength and my inspiration? From the women before me. From the 19th Amendment to Title IX that gives Puyallup the claim to fame for Megan Kwan's Olympic medal. I also want to get my strength from the indigenous women who have fought so hard, women of color, women that represent the gay and queer community, women that serve in our military and currently are serving in our military, women of business, the women who stand before students each and every day, like Councilmember Gilliam, who educate them. They're all part of this amazing group of humans. As I stand before you, I think about all the things that women have done in our past. And as a small business owner, it's important that we recognize the Chamber of Commerce of Puyallup and Sumner. They're an all-women organization and they fight for us small business owners. Former Mayor Kathy Turner, one, like she said, second mayor in our community, and all the women who have stood up here before us. I want to give a huge shout out to Councilmember Dorr. She has stepped up and supported us at All Things Fun Sports by putting our runs on the map and coming out and celebrating Daffodil, Run Your Bunts Off, 9/11. I cannot thank you enough, Julie. I really appreciate it. Now, I'm going to leave the podium because there's a lot of people that want to speak. But before I go, I'm going to step back and I am going to quote the great Helen Reddy.
30 seconds.
Yes. I can do anything. I am strong. I am invincible, and we are women. Thank you.
I came of age in the 1970s. I know that song very well. Jack Taylor, please.
Mr. Mayor and members of the city council, and I expect you can hear me. Good. I'm retired Air Force. I am retired school teacher, and I am retired. I'm here to propose that the city, through the authority granted to the council and management of city facilities, name the lobby area adjacent to the council chambers as Candle Hall to honor Victor Leonard Candle, awarded the Medal of Honor in World War II. Candle was killed in action in France on December 31st, that's New Year's Eve, 1944. He was a citizen of Puyallup and he graduated from Puyallup High School in 1939. Candle's life and service to our nation serve as outstanding examples of the human spirit. Yet there is no city monument or memorial recognizing his heroism. There is a monument to him at the entrance to Puyallup High School, placed there by the Puyallup School District, sponsored by Puyallup Valley Post 2224, Veterans of Foreign Wars, and other local agencies. Candle's story clearly meets the criteria for commemorative naming of the council chamber lobby to serve as a memorial in recognition of this exemplary Puyallup citizen for all who visit our city hall and the council chamber for the following reasons. He brought great honor on himself and the Puyallup community, his beloved boyhood home. He was awarded the highest military honor this nation can bestow. His life stands as a symbol and embodiment of this community's values for all citizens of Puyallup, the state of Washington, and the United States. Also, I have a bronze plaque displayed back there that was mounted on the facade of an Army Reserve facility in Tacoma that named their building Candle Hall. That facility closed and the Army returned the plaque to Candle's son, who donated it to the Puyallup VFW Post 2224. I propose that that plaque be mounted on the lobby wall or in an appropriate setting, as the wording is appropriate for the purpose along with the framed portrait of Lieutenant Candle to display with it. That portrait is framed as well. I request
30
that
seconds.
you look favorably on this proposal and approve to name the lobby of this facility as Candle Hall and display the plaque and portrait with it to honor the memory of this outstanding Puyallup citizen who gave his life far too soon in the cause of liberty. Respectfully submitted, Jack Taylor. And I have a copy of a packet which has this letter, pictures of the plaque and portrait, and about a 2-page bio of what Candle did and about him as a Puyallup citizen. Talks about his boyhood and a few other things. I'd like each of you to have it. Do I give it to you, sir? All right.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and provide that to the city clerk. Jack, I want to thank you for all you do for this community. It's a very deliberative process that we go through before we name anything within the city, and we will take this under serious advisement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have some VFW supporters that are here, and there's other people who want to speak about this topic too.
Okay, thank you. Next individual, Heather Shatko.
Good evening, council. Sorry, I sound like a smoker tonight. This was an amazing event. And when Lauren approached me about this and Kim was talking about it, I was really excited to see this happening. As a mother of 2 daughters, and tons of women friends and women business owners and women military, women everything, I think sometimes we forget that not that long ago, so many of us did not have these rights. My grandmother was born in 1903. Her mother could not vote when she was born. Women in Washington didn't earn the right to vote until 1910. It wasn't until an act of the federal government in 1974 that women could have their own checking account. I think with all the technology we have, sometimes we forget that. We forget that there's still barriers for women to rise above. We're strong and we're powerful. And I'm heartened to see the younger generation coming up behind us and the younger generation on the dais. And I am very proud of all of you. And I know you will continue to break those barriers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next individual, Doc Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Doc Hanson, 1719 14th Street Southwest and District 2. I sent all of you, or some of you, on January 4th, a memorandum asking for the, or issuing the regulation of Federal Way, who has a fire ordinance. And I brought 7 copies so each of you can read this to make sure that you all have a copy of this. Again, this is a regulation in Federal Way and it is working very well. It's not a model. It's a regulation that's used by a number of municipalities. And I hope that you have time to actually go through this. I also strongly recommend that you make this a priority in your April study session. I asked this since it was brought to my attention that before you can prohibit any fireworks in January, on January 4th, you have to pass it before this January 4th in order to get it in 2025. I also recommend that you consider asking Federal Way Police Department to actually come and present this to you at their study session, because they have an excellent presentation. And they use it every year to talk to their community. So you might reach out to them. Enough on fireworks. I also come tonight regarding the first reading of the ordinance that you have tonight regarding fair parking. I talked with Katie Baker, your planning manager, and your clerk, Dan Vessel. And they answered a lot of the questions and concerns that I had regarding fair parking. However, I still have a few concerns. The ordinance is a requirement for a receipt given by parking people so that they can find their car. I'm understanding that's one of the purposes of this. And it's going to be very difficult for those who have independent lots to hand out receipts. Perhaps they could be
30
tabbed
seconds.
because it's not required by the fair. I understand the concern of dedicating police resources towards this. And but I ask that you might look at a couple of others options. I also wish to express my concern that you're going to might prohibit changing prices during the day.
Mr. Mayor, speakers reach 3 minutes.
Supply and demand.
Can you please wrap up your
I'm
comments?
done. I would strongly recommend that you wait to implement this until, if you adopt it tonight, to implement it before the spring fair, so you have enough time to communicate this to the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paul Romich, please.
Thank you, Mayor Castamo. My name is Paul Romich. I live in District 1. I want to kind of talk about some things from last council session. People were pretty staunchly against the color purple being on the mountain of the brochure. It's my favorite color. So I'd like to see some purple on there, maybe in the form of a bicycle. I think that would be pretty cool for the tourism brochure. But I also want to talk about some of the discussions City Council had during the council retreat with two-way Meridian in particular. So I try to stay off Meridian, even though it's the downtown. As in case you don't know, I primarily travel by bicycle throughout our city, and so even though it's an electric bicycle that's capable of going up to 20 miles per hour, it's still difficult for me to keep up with the speeds of traffic that's just blowing past me in the other lane. Changing to a two-way Meridian would increase the safety there because it lowers the slower speeds. In addition, with the signal requirements and having put in signals, that allows us to upgrade and modernize our downtown signaling to implement leading pedestrian intervals, which will help mitigate and minimize collisions with cars and pedestrians. And you all saw this in my email, hopefully. But yeah, it would increase safety along that route. In the past 3 years, we had like 30 collisions along the single way of 3rd Street and Meridian combined. And one of those was a fatality, unfortunately. Just reducing speeds increases safety. It increases the complexity of the roadway, so drivers subconsciously slow down and actually follow the speed limit. And because it's now safer to walk, this compounds into a more active lifestyle, safer and more livable and healthy community. More people feel more comfortable to bike. More people feel more comfortable to walk, which is something we want in our downtown. This is something we want right here, right now in Puyallup. Okay, this is if you look at the results from our comprehensive plan survey, more people want to bike, more people want to walk, but they drive because
30 seconds.
that's what they feel safer doing. And part of that, if we go into organizational excellence, when we talk about these signal upgrades, right? I'm not sure if our Pierce Transit representative is still here, but he talked about transit priority signals, and getting that integrated, that increases the throughput of the road because more people can travel by bus than by car. It's just simple math. Getting that upgrades in there, working with our partner increases.
Mr. Mayor, the
effectiveness
speaker
there,
has reached 3
and
minutes.
ultimately, all that walkability,
Paul,
all
can
that
we-
increased traffic will increase our economic viability of downtown, creating a vibrant economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Karen McNamara.
Good evening, Mayor Castma, members of the City Council. My name is Karen McNamara. I'm a 38-year resident in this city. I taught students in this district for 38 years. I was the president of the Teachers Union for 14. And I'd like to talk with you about the proposal of 7 warehouses on the Shaw Road and Pioneer. I'd like to tell you that this morning I went south from my neighborhood. I live at 1504 28th Street Southeast in the Deer Creek neighborhood. I turned right onto Shaw Road. I was able to get out. Normally I can't get out from my neighborhood onto Shaw Road, but I was able to turn right because I was going south. And I noticed that, and I noticed that traffic going north was backed up not only to the stoplight where the new Safeway is, but clear up to where Skookum Archers is in one solid, steady line. Now, this was 8 o'clock, 7:45 in the morning. I realize there are school buses, but I would like to talk to you about the traffic impact that 8,724 car and truck trips per day would have on this corridor if you approve 7 warehouses. We were able, my husband and I, a few weeks ago to go over to the old cannery on a Friday night. We were fortunate someone let us out at 5 o'clock and the traffic was backed up from Toscano's clear up past 23rd in a solid line of traffic. And again, none of this has anything to do with all of that 8,724 more cars and trucks you want to add, not you necessarily, want to add to this. I went to the presentation that the city put on at Pierce County. I talked then, but one of the things I noticed in the presentation, and they did a really nice job, and I think about all of my taxpayer dollars that went to the numerous hours that they have spent trying to mitigate this proposal that the Pierce County has reneged on from our land use plan that we passed in 2014, but they never considered fair traffic. They never considered buses for the students. That you have 2 major schools on Shaw and Pioneer that have parents back up starting about 2:45 in the afternoon. What about the
30 seconds.
the power, the water pollution, the potential runoff from all of that? And once this farmland is gone, it's gone. We cannot get it back. We cannot get it back. I've watched this city grow in 38 years. I watched the Puyallup, the Van Leert property develop into a lovely wedding event and a lovely place to go. And who wants to go have their wedding taken with a warehouse in the background? That's a picture. For
Mr.
heaven's
Mayor,
sake.
the speaker has reached 3 minutes.
Thank you. Vote no on this proposal. It's a simple word, 2-letter word, no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do not pass this.
Let me be very clear. This council has never approved warehouses on that property, and it never will. Let me explain. That is county property. And the county is the one that went ahead and approved that, despite probably decades of discussion of that being a greenbelt. It is vested. It is legally vested that they can proceed now with those warehouses. The city of Puyallup asked that we at least be able to do the environmental impact statement to mitigate for the impacts. To achieve that, we had to go against the county and go all the way to the state Supreme Court just so that we have the right to do the environmental impact statements, because all of the impact will be on our roads. But we have no ability, though, there has never been a vote by this council, nor will there ever be, to approve any warehouses on that piece of property, but it has already been approved by the county. Let me be very clear. And we can do nothing about that. The vesting rights in Washington State are constitutionally guaranteed to individuals. It's gone all the way to the Supreme Court, vesting rights. So they have the rights to do that. We cannot stop that. I apologize for that, but that is the fact. So with that, I do appreciate your sentiment and your comments. Thank you. Sean Manley, please.
Greetings, council, mayor, city manager. I'm here to talk about charity again. I appreciate the questions that came up from council the last time I spoke. I really genuinely invite continued conversation around this topic. It's obviously a deep sense of passion and pride that I have in the charitable work that's being done in our community. I'm going to be sharing with you a letter I've handed to the city clerk that I've written to our financial partners, and I want to share that with you as well. But I also want to point out that a lot of people, again, don't know the food bank is actually the largest convener of nonprofit service providers in Pierce County. Next month, we'll be hosting nearly 75 to 100 of our service providers to meet for over a half day of professional development. Professional development, as it relates to nonprofit work, is of paramount importance to me. It's why our organization spends hundreds of hours on our staff and volunteers training every year for critical incident stress management, mental health first aid, de-escalation, of course, first aid, CPR, those sorts of things. But this is something we're also providing for a lot of the other nonprofits in our community because we believe that a rising tide raises all ships. I'm going to read this letter to you, and I don't think I'll get it all the way through the next 2 minutes, but it's important to identify the categories of care that you're providing as a service provider. And so as you're looking at the charitable work being done in our community, I believe that all service providers fall into one of these three categories of medical care. So I borrowed from the medical field. I'm not a medical professional, but I want to read to you what I wrote to our partners, and I will cut myself off in 90 seconds. Greetings, partner. Thank you for being a part of the Puyallup Food Bank. Did you know that there are three primary categories of care we provide to our neighbors in need? These classifications mirror the three principal categories of medical care. Curative. We distribute food through partner pantries and meal programs to help our neighbors who have hit rock bottom. These include organizations like Gethsemane, a 40-acre recovery camp helping families rebuild their lives after losing everything due to addiction. This kind of care brings healing at the deepest level. Palliative. We partner with Billy, who runs the meal program at the Golden Rose Mobile Home Park, a community of 160 low-income seniors. We share our meat and veggies with Billy to help her make stews, casseroles, and other meals for our fixed-income friends. This ongoing care makes daily life a bit easier for these folks. I'll add seniors and people with disabilities. So those that are not able to hope for establishing themselves financially, we expect them to be able to receive that care for the rest of their lives with all the honor due them. And finally, preventative. Most of our clients are employed. When they encounter an unexpected car repair or loss of job, they need a short-term protection against catastrophic loss.
30 seconds.
This is really a category of care that probably 90% of our clients fall into. We serve military families. We serve people who don't want to have to be evicted. They don't want to have to move their kids out of school. And the bulk of the 60 clients we feed, the families per day, we serve 4 times per week. We serve 60 families per shift. And those families depend on us to help us to keep them from falling through the cracks entirely and needing a curative level of care. So you can read the rest of my letter when you receive that. I'm grateful for our ability to serve our community.
Mr. Mayor,
I thank you for your
speakers,
service as well.
Thank you. Finally, Dave Churchman.
Dave Churchman, District 2. I'm going to give you a challenge, you guys, in right and the wrong from many, many years ago. If you drive up to Seattle, when you get halfway along there, you'll see this big empty area to your left, the Des Moines landfill from 50 years ago. There's nothing on it except gas being burned off. If you drive south towards Graham, the Hidden Valley landfill, there's nothing on it. It's just gas being burned off. That's not the case in Puyallup. Many of you might not even know this. There were 3 toxic landfill dumps along East Main between Subway and Mama Stortini's. That's a fact. In fact, there were 2 studies done by the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department, one from 1993, one from 2010. That goes into elaborate details, including maps, history, the whole thing. There was even a lawsuit filed And that was filed in 2008 by the owners of the apartments, that their complaint was they received building permits to allow them to do it. And they thought the onus was on the city to stop it. Well, it didn't go good for the city. The city had to pay them a chunk of cash. Don't remember exactly, but it's probably something on the order of a couple of $1 million. You might consider that hush money. And the reason I call it hush money was the owners of the apartments didn't tell any of the residents what they were living above. And the other really stupid, dirty thing, 6 months after getting the check, they buggered off back to Bellevue and sold the place. So there was no continuity to tell the residents about the issues where they live. Now, in the last 15 years, I've spoken to quite a few residents of that area down there, the apartments. And many of them, guess what? They have headaches. They feel sick. But being as their apartments, they take the easy way out. They go to somewhere else to live. But there's really a kind of a moral obligation that they be told, if not by the apartment owners, the new ones, and of course, they own it, but they didn't cause the problem. They weren't even paid off. Or even the city. I don't know what the solution is. But there's a couple of thousand people there live between Subway and Mama's Tortinis. And it's
30 seconds.
dangerous. And something needs to be done about it. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't live anywhere near there. But it's just plain wrong. I encourage you to fix the old wrong. Do what's right. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Churchman. Are there any further comments from anyone in the audience who would like to come forward, even if you did not fill out one of these slips? Sir, go ahead, come forward. We know your name and what district you're from. It's easier just to give your address.
I'm from Frederickson.
Okay, and your name?
Tamar Jackson.
Okay.
So I've sat and I've watched and I've listened. I've listened to proclamations for women. I've listened to proclamation for Black history. What I want to be able to do over this next year is I just don't want it to be something that is just celebrated just to celebrate. And celebrate it because you feel that you need to celebrate it. If you say it's a proclamation, respect the fact that there are other individuals that are of color in this community and help them feel and be a part of this community. If we talk about the women that we are celebrating in this community, don't look at it as because it's the month, we have to celebrate them in the community. They should be celebrated 365 days a year. The problem is that we're just talking about a proclamation in 2024 to celebrate all these beautiful women that are in this room. When we are talking about trying to change what Puyallup looks like, I don't know if you guys realize, but Puyallup is diverse. There are more people than just white individuals in Puyallup. So as a chamber, we should be looking at ways to invite the rest of the community, not just the white community, not the right way, but the white way. We got to start adding the people to be involved in our community so that they feel that they are part of the community. Whether we vote, whether we talk about a school board, whether we talk about education, I hear equitable housing, but then we talk about livable wages. Last time I checked, they look very different from 18 to 24, depending on who you are living with. So when we talk about equitable housing, who are you talking to and what are you talking about? When we talk about equitable education, who are you talking about? All we are looking for is justifiable education. So all of our Black and brown children can get the same respect and same education that the rest of the white children are getting in this thing, regardless of what. You could say equity, but we know what that means. We know what that means. It just sits and it looks, oh, it's equitable. No, it's not. If we are talking about change in Puyallup, and I'm looking at everybody on this board, again, I'm not picking anybody out because I don't know you personally. So don't take it personally, but if it hurt you, it hit you. And if it hits you, I'll be sitting outside so we can talk about it later. But just understand, moving forward, we're
30
not
seconds.
we're not looking for COVID. We're not looking for excuses. We're looking for action. You guys were voted on this panel for action. I need to see action. I'm done with, we've been doing this, and this is what it looks like, and this is how we do these things. I need action. And if you cannot give action, I respectfully ask you as a citizen to please step down, remove yourself, and stop sitting on the panel for legacy. We need change in
Mr.
this
Mayor,
community.
speakers reached 3 minutes.
I'm at 3 minutes. I'll see y'all soon.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to step forward? Hearing, seeing none, let's go ahead now and we'll go ahead and recess. We'll reconvene. At this time, Councilmember Adler has more copies of that resolution for distribution, but we will reconvene at actually 5 minutes till, okay? Thank you. Right. Okay, colleagues, consent agenda item number 4. Please examine the consent agenda. If there is any of them you would like to remove for discussion, go ahead and bring that point forward. If not, I would consider a motion to accept all those items on the consent agenda 4A through 4H.
I second.
I don't believe it. Was there a motion there? I so move. Okay.
I second.
There you go. Thank you. I don't mind the second before the actual motion. It works. So with that, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Consent agenda passes. Let's move on to item number 5, ordinances. And this is the first reading of an ordinance amending section 5.32 of the Puyallup Municipal Code as it pertains to temporary stands and temporary fair housing. City Clerk Dan Vessels, he'll introduce the ordinance, and Chief of Police Scott Engel will be available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mayor Castma and council members. Yes, this is a proposed ordinance to modify Code 5.32 of the Puyallup Municipal Code as it relates to temporary fair stands and temporary fair parking. The purpose of the ordinance modifications are partially to clean up some verbiage to ensure that we're following the correct title. It's now the Washington State Fair, so we're wanting to clear that up. And then we're also proposing some changes to address changes with the fair schedule, as well as some potential safety concerns for visitors to the Puyallup area. And first, I'll talk about the proposed changes as it relates to temporary fair stands. What we're proposing here is to simply modify the deadline as to when someone must submit a application for a temporary fair stand. Currently, the code indicates that this must be done by the last business day of August. This year, for example, that would be August 30th. The first day of the fair is August 30th. For a typical temporary stand, we do ask for 5 days before the business begins selling items so that my office has the ability to process the application. From my office, it goes to Development and Permitting Services for review, and then it proceeds to Central Pierce Fire and Rescue, who come out, do the final review of the building or the tent, whatever they're proposing to use, and they issue that temporary stand license. So by moving the date, our proposal is to change the language to read that they must apply for the license no later than 5 business days before the first day of either the spring fair or the fall fair. As the Washington State Fair continues to expand their programs for the spring fair, it's now 2 weeks, and then they potentially have the ability to adjust the start date. We just want to provide some flexibility so we're not coming back to you in the future should that date change. As it relates to temporary fair parking, what we're looking to do here again is to clarify some language in the code and then address some safety concerns that have come up over the years for the public and the visitors. As the code relates, it does indicate that a temporary fair parking license is required for every individual. So what we are just looking for is a little bit of clarity in the code that does indicate that regardless of the number of cars that you have on your lot, you are required to get a license. This is so we can ensure that there is equitable treatment amongst everyone that is running a temporary fair parking lot and for the visitors who choose to park on those lots. We want to make sure that the safety concerns are addressed and met, and that parking enforcement has the ability to make sure that visitors to the Puyallup area, which number in the hundreds of thousands each year for the state fair, are able to be taken care of. A couple of those addresses that we want to talk about. First one being that each lot would be required to post clear signage that details the cost of parking at the lot before the consumer enters the lot. I know there was a comment earlier about allowing lot owners to modify their posted rates. That's fine. If the lot owner wants to charge $10 in the morning and they want to change it in the afternoon to $25, $30, that's fine. The only thing that we're asking is that they clearly post that price on the sign. So before someone pulls into the lot, they have a clear understanding of the expectation of what they're going to pay. We also want to make sure that the temporary fair license is posted on that sign so they are aware this is a licensed organization and that they are going to follow our rules. We're also proposing the lot operators provide a receipt for the transaction that contains either a QR code, which the individual can scan on their smartphone, or simply the address of the location of the lot. This request was brought by Chief Engel on behalf of the police department, and he can speak to this more in depth in a moment. But our officers spend quite a bit of time in the evenings after a fair simply helping people try to drive around to find where they park their cars. We get a lot of visitors to the Washington State Fair. They come in from other regions of Western Washington, Eastern Washington, sometimes out of state. They don't know our streets. They don't know our neighborhoods. They arrive early in the morning. They walk out late. They're unsure of simply where they parked. So this is to just expedite things for the police. Should someone say, can you help me locate my vehicle? They can provide easy directions or quickly assist them to where they are. The receipt can be simply a pre-printed piece of paper cut up that has all the information pre-filled with a blank line that indicates the individual paid, again, whatever that rate is, the $10, the $25, the $30, whatever the posted rate that they list. And additionally, what we're looking for is to require lot operators to submit with their application a handwritten drawing or something that clearly provides a layout of what kind of safe ingress and egress these visitors to their lot will provide. As all of us have seen, as you drive through areas where we have lot operators that look to park, there are certain times where there's concerns with people getting in or out of the parking lot, whether it be on foot or by car. And we just want to make sure that, again, for safety of the visitors in our community, people can use these temporary lots, get in and get out safely and efficiently. It helps with traffic, it helps with safety, and that's what we're looking to do. I'll turn it over to Chief Engel, who can speak just a little bit more briefly as to the concern with the receipts. Chief.
Mayor Castema, council member Scott Engel, chief of police. So I appreciate the council's consideration of our request for some modifications. This comes after some challenges from the 2023 Washington State Fair. First, as it relates to the posting of the actual cost of parking, this is really coming forward from a first for any of us who've been around a long time in the police department, with a lot that did not post their parking price. And a citizen parked their car and she felt that she was charged a different price for a different reason. And as we spoke to that lot person, it was clear that they had no intention of posting the price. So again, I share this with you because this came to us as, how can you help us protect customers and consumers and citizens and guests of the fair that are parking in private lots, that the price should be clearly visible when they pull into that parking lot and they know what the price is. As it relates to the issue of the QR code or map or something that tells people where they park, inevitably we have people who come to the fair, our guests, who will park at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and it's light out, and they go into the fair and have a great time and come out and it's dark and have no idea where they park their car. Our police officer resources are becoming more and more stretched when the fair ends at night, making sure that we are able to exit people out of the community in a safe manner, as well as providing a visible presence so there aren't issues as lots of people leave the fair when it closes. This is one area where we can do some proactive things to protect the resources that we have in the police department. Just simply giving them a piece of paper that either has a map of where they park the car, the address, or something would be of huge help to us, because people can then find their way back to their car without us driving them around. In our city, not all cities are this way, but if you tell us you parked at 7th Avenue and 5th Street and that's all you know, well, there's about 3 different geographical areas that we have to look, because you didn't know that we have a southeast, southwest, northwest, and northeast. So again, this is just a common sense approach from our perspective to be able to help with that. And with that, I'll entertain any questions. One thing I did want to address is community outreach. Sorry, I forgot that. Both the city clerk's office and our department have engaged in conversation and have a plan for community engagement, which would start first with the spring fair coming up this April. We would be looking to educate our citizens who are parking cars at their homes or on their properties in preparation for the fall fair, where we would really like to see this take effect. The police department, we will do, of course, our normal social media education campaign, but frankly, we know the streets, we know the properties, we know the people parking cars, and ours will be much, much more of a door-to-door, hey, during spring fair, here's what we're having happen for fall fair. What questions do you have, and help educate people on the why of this, because there is a why behind this.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think I support the concept on this. There's a couple of things that I would probably, that I heard mentioned, I might caution that we don't move too deep into the minutia. I'm okay with posting the rates. I think that makes sense. Post the rates when you go in, and whether you start out in the morning at $10, in the evening, you change it to 30, that's fine. Supply and demand makes sense to me as long as it's posted. I think that's fair. I'm okay with the address being on there. I think that's fair and reasonable. I would be a little concerned about having too much explicit egress diagrams on exiting of a small lot. It would be a little bit monotonous, but I'm somewhat indifferent, but I think it might be a little bit too much. But I am concerned about a receipt amount. I don't know if it'd be required that they had to put a receipt of how much they paid on it. I'd be a little bit concerned that we're getting too much in the minutia, whatever they worked out with at the time, as long as they paid and they got some kind of piece of paper. They've obviously agreed at that point, once they paid with a piece of paper, to park. So I would be a little bit concerned about putting a receipt amount on that to validate it. But those are the only things I want to mention. But the posted rate's fine. Address on it's fine. Other ones a little bit more concerned, at least initially to start out with, being a little bit too maybe overly bureaucratic on it, but that's my thoughts.
Okay, Councilmember Dorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief Engel, so I have a question. Does this ordinance apply to Kiwanis, Rotary, all the service clubs?
Yes, it
Or
would.
is-
Councilmember Dorr.
Okay, so, and I'm assuming the price change works the same where when we've parked in the past for Kiwanis, that the neighbor across the street, they just changed the sign. Is that correct? Like it doesn't even have to be I don't believe this is posted by time of day. It's just, okay, we're busy now, and you stick up the 20. Some of them already have them pre-made. Am I understanding it correctly?
That's absolutely correct. We really have no concern with the change of price. It's just, please post the price.
Okay, and is there a reason? Is it the reason? I'm trying to figure out, when it changes that quickly and you've got a big event, how are they going to be marking those numbers? Because it can be changed from the time somebody's pulling in, the next car could get changed. And I'm thinking of the larger lots, like over at Life Care Center. How do you track that?
So we would see that when the car pulls in, whatever the price was posted when they pulled in, that's what would go on the piece of paper. And they would know that. Right now, again, we have one example where they're not posting any price. And so again, for us, we're fine with however many times you want to change the price during the day. It's just that the price is posted before the folks pull in. So using your example of the Kiwanis lot, if a car pulls in and the price is $20, they know that they paid that, and they go out and change it to 25, and the next car pulls in, that's what they would do. That's up to the private lot operator to determine what their price is.
So I guess I'm thinking about the volunteers of the lot, at the lot. Who's gonna, I guess so if you're paying on the way in, you just hand them, but is that, okay, it just seems like that I understand what you're saying. It seems like when you get to those service club lots that it might be a little bit more challenging, and you're trying to get those cars off the road, not backing up there. But I do understand what your point is. I have a little bit of concern about the license fee for the small lots. It seems to me that we had conversations in the past about this, and not we being you, but council. And we did, like when we did our small business licensing, we talked about a threshold, that they're not a dollar amount before we would require business licenses, things of that nature. So I have a little bit of concern with some of the smaller pieces, and some of the smaller homes, and we did receive a couple of emails expressing that same thing, that they have the fair in their backyard or front yard or wherever it might be, side yard, and that they have that in their lives for however long the fair is running. And we're discouraging that. So have a little bit of concern with that. Is there, from your perspective, is there a reason that if mom and dad can park 4 cars in their yard and they want to do that, that they're charged the same permit as the Kiwanis lot that can park hundreds of cars? Why do we need to do that?
Councilmember Dora, I think that's completely a policy question for council. I think what's important to the police department is that we have some type of licensing requirement so we can ensure compliance with the statute.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Adler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for this. I will be transparent and say that I have a very, very long history with a family parking lot that my family is no longer owners of or a part of. The lot no longer exists and hasn't since 2016. My family parked cars at 530 and 608 9th Avenue Southwest for over 55 years, known as Joe's Coaster Parking. But like I said, I want to be really clear. My family does not own either of those properties anymore. And again, haven't parked any vehicles since 2016. It was my first job, standing on the corner, being a flagger, and at one time a cashier. I didn't get to do that for very long, but then was in the back assisting cars to the best of my ability and teaching people how to back in before I could even drive myself. To follow up on Councilmember Doerr's comments, I am sensitive and would like to engage in a conversation with my colleagues about lot size or number of vehicles that any lot can fit to park on their property, and ensuring, if an individual chooses to park, 5 vehicles on their front lawn, having discussion about what is appropriate for those residential lot owners, to pay for their permit, or what that looks like. I will say I need to reread the statute to ensure that we're consistent there, to your point, Chief. But I am, again, very sensitive to those folks. Just a couple questions. Do either of you happen to know how many lots we generally have, or that usually obtain a license?
Yes, I can answer that, Councilmember Adler. And just as far as the fee goes, the fee for this, we are not looking to address it this time. It's $37.50 for the license. And that license is good for the entire run of both the spring and the fall fair. So if a homeowner would like to operate one of these lots from the spring fair, the same license is good through the end of the fall fair. So they don't have to worry about getting a double license. Last year, the city clerk's office issued 9 parking permit licenses.
Thank you for that. I think that then leads to my second question of enforcement. And perhaps I will wait to hear or engage in that conversation until after you do your outreach. I will tell you that I have a very explicit memory in my mind, actually, as a young person working at my family's lot, when a city employee, a code enforcer, came to talk to me if my parents were home or my grandparents, because my grandfather's sign was out of code. It was too tall. So that's another question, I guess, for another time. But I guess finally, my last question is, do you have a sense of number of violations? I mean, I guess it's kind of hard, right, to track that. Yeah.
No. So just anecdotally, I can let you know, as far as code enforcement, we do have a code enforcement officer with the city, Shane Piran. And over the last few years, he has expressed to me difficulty as far as the enforcement of this. He's received a few complaints of lots where they have more than 15 vehicles. And when he drives out to look at it, the lot at that time has 12 or 13 cars on it, which was below the the standard that the clerk's office would do for years, which was that you would only be required to provide or to obtain a license if you had more than 15. The neighbors would complain, and he would explain to the neighbors that complained, they only have 12 or 13 lots right now. I can't do anything because there are not more than 15 cars on this lot or more than 15 spaces. So it has caused some issues for him in attempts to enforce the code, which has always indicated that you're required to have a license. As far as violations, I can let you know personally, last year there were 0 temporary fair licenses for parking issued by my office until July. If you drove around during the spring fair, I counted at least a dozen different private businesses or lots that were providing parking for the spring fair up and down Meridian and through the neighborhoods. So just for the spring fair alone, there were no licenses that were issued. If you were to look at it from, again, anecdotally, if you drove around during the Washington State Fair last year, I would be willing to say that there were well in excess of 15 to 20 different private lots or homes that were providing fair parking. And again, we issued 9 licenses.
Thank you. The last thing I'll say is that, you know, aside from being very sensitive to this, you know, frankly, we need folks to step up and to offer their property for parking. And so, you know, I think it is my ethos, you know, to in general, to make it easier for people to do business in the city of Puyallup. But certainly with this instance, also just because I think, you know, the fair, we really do need these folks and the nonprofits and service clubs to step up. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Gilliam.
It's really fun to hear Councilmember Adler talk about parking cars when literally I grew up a couple houses down and 620 and 624 parking there. And I can only hear my grandparents talk about, oh my gosh, if they had to have a permit to park, how frustrating it would be due to the fact that their street was locked down for so much time out of the year. And now we have to pay in order to put up with the traffic. Those are just the thoughts. I'm not saying I'm anti accountability or support for our guests that come into Puyallup. I think what I'm hearing is we want to make sure that we're charging honest prices versus just a shotgun last minute. Oh no, you're actually $35 instead of 20, right? Like, do you want the parking spot or not? And then send that person back out looking for another spot. I also hear people get lost in Puyallup if you're not from Puyallup. That makes perfect sense to me. But I can also, from a growing up down the street parking cars, you're going to make us do what? Because we get locked in. So I would really love to hear some citizen comments. I don't even know if we have time, but at this, like, did we go say, hey, what do you think of this? Or
so the outreach plan, Chief Ingles already indicated that police department's plan is to do a door-to-door approach. From my office, what we will be doing, should this ordinance pass as it's written, I would be sending out a personalized email to the 9 organizations or lot owners that applied for and received a fair parking license for last year, letting them know of the updated changes. I've already begun working with our public affairs officer to update our website. We have an updated flyer that we will be putting out as well to provide to the police officers to take out that directs the changes. We're going to be putting information about this in our newsletter. And I think the biggest point is we will be using a rolled out approach to use the spring fair as a educational standpoint for the lot owners, both small private individuals who park in their home, on their yards, or Safeway or the chiropractor office or Kiwanis, to be able to let them know these are the changes that are going to be coming. And for a lot of the lot owners, there really isn't anything new. A lot of them, as Chief Ingle said, we just had a one-off last year where someone didn't post their prices. So for most of the lot owners, they already take that advance note to put a sign out that lets folks know parking here is $20 or $25. We're just wanting clarity in the code that simply indicates, regardless of the number of lots, that you're getting a license. And the biggest thing is that receipt to protect the individual, in my view, to make sure that if they were to use a credit card, they believe they're paying 20, the charge comes through at 30 or 40. They're aware of what they're getting for that. They pay cash, they know what, they have a receipt that shows where they are. Again, at the end of the night, when they leave that fair, they've enjoyed that time at the Washington State Fair. They can safely and easily get back to their vehicle.
I'm just curious, at my grandparents' house, they were very generous and let people park for free.
Mhm.
Are we requiring a permit if people are letting family members, whoever, park in their yard as well?
I would believe that the city attorney is shaking his head, no, but the answer to that would be no, because they are not charging for the fair parking.
Okay, thank you.
May I remind members that this is the first reading and that that even passing this, it still has to go through a second reading, which it can be completely amended. It can fail on second reading too, but it can be amended. And oftentimes things are passed with the idea that there will be past pending amendments moving forward. And that would mean, you'd still have to get 4 votes to move it to that position. And if you're uncomfortable, the council is uncomfortable, they may not want to even do first reading at this point, but instead delay first reading, a vote on that until they do hear more public testimony, et cetera. So just be aware of that this is step 1 of a process of examining this issue. I have a question. It appears to me that there are 3 primary issues here. I think we've all very familiar at this point, is that a very clear price, that we have a layout that it looks safe for the cars, for any type of regress, whatever the case may be, and that you have an address. Those are the 3 items that we're looking at that we want to solve for. Let me ask you about that complaint you received from somebody who said that they wanted something enforced, but there was only 12 cars and not 15. What was the complaint? What was the issue? Do you know?
My understanding is that the lot did not have a license.
Okay.
And that their belief was the code as it was written required that homeowner obtain a license. And when our code enforcement officer came out, informed the individual that filed the complaint that the longstanding policy was that a license was only required if there were more than 15 cars on the lot. And while the code does indicate as it's written that temporary fair parking is required to have a license, there was other documentation on the city website and other flyers that said a license was only required for 15 or more cars.
Understand, but this is a distinction I'd like to make here, is that I am not really that concerned about whether they have a license or not. I'm concerned about whether they display prices publicly, that they have some sort of a sensible layout, and that they actually hand somebody a form that has an address on it. As far as the receipt goes, if I pay for a credit card, well, I'm going to get a credit card receipt back. And if not, I could dispute that and say that that wasn't what I was charged. So there's a remedy there. Is there a problem with having no license? I'm just throwing it out there, no license, but instead just saying part of the ordinance is if you have a parking lot, you must display prices. They must be clearly posted. Number 2, you must have on the premises a layout, that outlines where cars are. So there's a structure to it. And number 3, you must give all entities, everyone who uses your facility, a card listing the address of it so that they can locate it. That would solve it. In your case, someone was just complaining that they wanted action because they didn't have a receipt, but they didn't have one of these issues, from what I can see, that would be a cause for concern. And I say that because I too grew up here. And a lot of people treat these, for lack of a better analogy, almost like a lemonade stand.
Yeah.
They treat them like, I want to make some extra money. I got a lawn out there and I have people coming through these neighborhoods, and heck, I might as well put 5 or 6 cars on there, $10 a piece, that pays for a family meal or something along that lines. So that's kind of where my concern is, are we getting too bureaucratic? But I do want you to answer this question. Is there a problem with just enforcing, prices, layout, and address without getting licensing?
So I will rely on Chief Engel to correct me if I'm wrong, and the city attorney, but I don't believe if there is no license, there's no way for us to confirm that this is actually someone that's running a lot where they have 5 cars and they're charging $40 a car, or if it's someone that is simply allowing friends and family to park on their property, of which they wouldn't fall under these requirements because we don't know that they're charging a fee. They could simply take down the signage and say, we didn't charge a fee for this. And then at what point would the parking enforcement officers or code compliance have any recourse to enforce a code? Chief Engel, am I incorrect on that, city attorney?
Attorney Beck, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The one issue that I can see besides what Dan has articulated in licenses help you track these things, that is a feature of licensing. The other feature that would be hard to manage is the ingress and egress, where we're requiring people to show basic level of safety for getting out, in and out of traffic and in and out of the lot, without somebody submitting that ahead of time. And usually you would do that through the application process. And so that's, the license facilitates that as well. We can put it in code, all these requirements in code, and we can issue infractions or do enforcement without, I could write it, and I can go back and revise this to write it in such a way that you don't have to come get a license. We'll just lose that tracking component that is inherent in requiring somebody to get a license. And that's one of the main reasons we do business licenses and things like that. It's not just about collecting money. It's about knowing who's doing what in our community so that we can track it and enforce. And then the ingress and egress ahead of time being determined and explained ahead of time and reviewed, we would lose that without the license.
I understand. I too would like to think about this a little bit, because this is just done temporarily. People do it just for the fair. And again, like when I was a kid, it was people who don't normally do this just to get a little extra money. And I understand that with the Kiwanis clubs, et cetera, it's much different than that. So with that, I'll just keep moving on with comments. Councilmember Johnson and then Councilmember Dorr. Please.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we've reached a good point. So I'd like to offer, if I'm hearing correctly, maybe a compromise. I'm not comfortable moving forward with it as stated today, unless there were some provisions. I'd like to propose that we go ahead and implement a business license, because it sounds like the person or the entity that was giving you the most trouble was a larger lot. Is that correct? It wasn't a smaller lot, it was a larger lot.
Yes, Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
It's related to the price. Yes.
The price, yeah. I'd like to suggest that we only offer business license only on those lots that are whatever 25 or more. Find some number, and if you're over that amount, you are required to get a business license. And all the smaller lots would be exempt from a business license. I think we're really meddling into, in my opinion, mom and pop, parking cars on a smaller lot. I don't think we should get a business license. It sounds a little bit invasive. But we could certainly put in some requirements in coding that would, say if you're small or large, you got to post prices. And if you're small or large, you have to hand out some kind of piece of paper with your address, but only a license required for those larger lots to perhaps get the teeth that you need to be able to enforce it. And because I don't think most of your complaints are coming. And of course, the egress degress would only be really necessary on the larger lots. You're not going to need egress degress on the smaller mom and pop lot, because you come in this way, you go out this way. So it's going to be pretty basic. So I'd like to offer that maybe compromise to be brought back on the second reading, unless there's some council members that thought that wasn't a good idea or wanted to offer some other thoughts.
Thank you. Councilmember Dorr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple more questions. One, I don't know if it was Councilmember Adler or Gilliam kind of hit on it. The friends, if I have a small home, I can put 5 or 6 cars in my lot. It just seems like an enforcement nightmare. How are you going to know if those are my family and friends that I allowed to park there, or I'm in violation? We have one code compliance officer. that I fear that this turns into a really big nightmare for the one individual that we have, and we have a 14 square mile city for him to work on. We have, if you're on, I mean, we're all from Puyallup. You drive around down there, there are people that are parked even on our streets that are not following the rules or so that puts it back onto our police officers. The enforcement of this just seems very onerous. I struggle with that. So how do you, I understand the bigger lots would be easier, but also, and on the layout, I've seen the most people pack in more it's like a Tetris box, but also, as we know from the Kiwanis lot, if I'm parking a big truck versus a Mini Cooper, that changes the amount of space that I have. So how is your mom and pop supposed to account for all of this? This is pretty onerous for a small neighborhood, just Renee's grandparents or Lauren's family. I just don't it seems like a lot of work for them to have to comply. And I don't know between police and Shane how we're going to enforce this. It just seems too much. Can we require them to have a sign that posts their address and people can snap a picture of it? So that, I mean, I take a picture of my parking spot usually. Sometimes I lose my car too, but it just seems like a lot of regulations on some small businesses. I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm going to support on first reading. I'd like to see some changes. Thank you.
Okay, any further comments? I would not be opposed to saying that everyone would have to get a license, but that it wouldn't cost anything to those of a certain level. I mean, what we're trying to do here, folks, is we just want to make sure that things are safe. It's transparent. And so the consensus I'm getting from the council is that we may not be ready to vote this out first reading. And that I do think that in the interim between this and the next meeting, by the way, are we under any time schedule at all with Spring Fair and all of that?
Spring Fair is in April, so you have at least you've got at least probably 3 more meetings before the Spring Fair. So,
Okay,
yeah.
fine. I'd like to challenge my council members. I'd like to put this on the agenda in the future, but I'd like them to come back with the fact that all 3 of these issues I think are relevant. And that from what I'm hearing, the enforcement mechanism, it may well be that a license mechanism is a good way, at least when it comes to the layout of the location. But I think we're kind of worried about the onerous aspect, and maybe what we do is limit the cost for those under a certain size to where they don't pay anything at all. But I'll tell you what, with your permission, I will move this to the next agenda, and at which time I would like to see more creative input on amendments, and we will vote such, okay? Councilmember Johnson.
Couldn't staff come back with some, they've heard a lot of our comments. Couldn't they maybe interpret some things and bring us back some options?
Well, they may be able to
given
do
a lot
that,
of
but
comments, right?
I think I would ask you to talk to staff specifically, just to make sure that a consensus is a very difficult thing to detect. And I would say, if you have an amendment, talk to staff, let's bring it up, let's vote it, let's discuss it. So I would not rely 100% on staff to do that. Okay. I mean, they will do it per your request. So with that, I'm going to move on to the next item on our agenda. Number 6, resolutions. That's 6A, resolution confirming appointments to various citizens, volunteer boards and commissions. City Clerk, please introduce the resolution.
Yes, thank you once again, Mayor Castleman and council members. So on Thursday, February 8th, the City Council Ad Hoc Committee met with approximately 18 different volunteer individuals who applied for various board and commission positions. And what you have in front of you is a proposed resolution that represents the nominations of that committee. They are looking to fill spaces that are on the Arts and Culture Commission, Civil Service Commission, the City Council Salary Review Commission, Design Review and Historic Preservation Board, Recreation Board, Planning Commission, and Senior Advisory Board. Should this resolution be approved this evening, my office tomorrow will begin advertising for 10 additional openings that we have, which are 2 openings on the City Council Salary Review, 2 openings on the Senior Advisory Board, and the annual 6 LTAC openings. We would be hoping to bring another resolution before this council in either late April or early May with recommendations of the ad hoc committee to fill those openings. And I'm able to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Dan, what are you looking for from the council this evening?
So what we'll need this evening, Mayor Castma, is a motion, a second, and a vote to approve the resolution that you have before you. If approved, the individuals will begin their term on the first Wednesday of March.
Okay. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, if there is no discussion, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, City Clerk, you have your decision.
Thank you, sir.
And now let's move on to the next resolution, 6B, designating the Tacoma Weekly as a city's official newspaper. Would you like to continue, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Castma. So I bring this resolution before you this evening as a way to use our limited city resources in the best way possible. The city spends quite a significant amount of money every year on mandatory advertising. This advertising takes place in multiple departments, the city clerk's office, development and permitting services, and public works, as well as many others, where we are required by statute to post notices of public hearings, summaries of ordinances, as well as budget meetings. What we are proposing this evening is that the city council accept and adopt a resignation that appoints the Tacoma Weekly as the city paper of record. The Tacoma Weekly does meet the state requirements as a paper of record. Currently, if you were to look at this week's edition, they have multiple advertisements from Pierce County Superior Court, as well as advertisements from courts in, I believe, New Jersey and Nevada, involving potential individuals that take place in the greater Tacoma area. The potential savings to the city would be significant. Just development and permitting services alone had their advertisements run in the Tacoma Weekly last year versus the Tacoma News Tribune, it would have been an 84% savings. As the agenda bill before you notes, that would equate to over $40,000 a year of savings to the city that can be reallocated towards other programs. The Tacoma Weekly does also provide a free paper, both in print and online, to anyone that would like to view that. And they have multiple boxes in circulation throughout the city limits of Puyallup, as well as online. You can go and view their current edition every Wednesday. And I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Do I have any questions? Okay, Councilmember Gilliam.
Thank you, Dan. Does that mean that we're gonna stop posting around town at the different locations that you mentioned that we advertise currently? And only use the Tacoma Weekly?
So the advertisements that I'm referring to are the legal advertisements by statute, where, for example, when an ordinance is passed, the city clerk's office is required to post a legal advertisement in the newspaper, a summary of that ordinance, rather than go to the Tacoma News Tribune at a cost between $300 to $400 per ordinance. We would be using the Tacoma Weekly service, which would cost us approximately $40 to $50.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Whitting.
I move approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We have discussion. Councilmember Adler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Dan, for working on this. I have a question, and that question is, will we be able to ensure that we can get a Tacoma Weekly dispenser, if you will? I noticed that there looks to be a new one in front of Taco Bell, just down the street, but just am wondering if we might be able to partner with them to have another dispenser somewhere around town. Thank you.
And to answer that question, Councilmember Adler, the Tacoma Weekly actually has boxes in front of the post office. They've recently gone out and renovated those. They have multiple boxes throughout downtown. I was out with my family just last weekend, and I believe they had one just around the corner from Mazatlan. We actually have current copies of the Tacoma Weekly available in the public library. We have copies downstairs in the lobby that you can go and obtain today. And they have a circulation of approximately 5,000 print newspapers throughout the city limits. There are some at Safeway, there are some at Fred Meyer, as well as other retail locations, and they will be expanding that over the next few weeks to include up on South Hill.
I'd like to remind council members that this is actually a statutory requirement by the state of Washington that all municipality go ahead and notify the public in a newspaper that is a newspaper of record. And there are certain types of requirements you have to go through to actually qualify as a newspaper of record. And if the Tacoma Weekly, as you say, meets those requirements and we can have those savings, it sounds like a good deal, and I will support the motion. So all those, absent any further discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, with that, we will now move on to considerations and request. A resolution updating the city's employment position portfolio and non-represented employee salary schedule. Ken, please come forward. Ken Davies is the Public Works Director. Now Hans Hunger is here too, and he will give a presentation. Please, Ken.
Good evening, Mayor Castma and Council. Ken Davies, Public Works Director. Tonight, I'll be introducing the capital projects new positions for engineering and discuss the resolution, and then I'll pass it on to Hans to give you the detail. Before you is a resolution to authorize adding to the city's position portfolio a project manager, and then the two that we are requesting to fill are the senior project manager and capital division supervisor. The positions will help CIP engineering achieve a reliable infrastructure which supports the council's strategic plan, specifically a safe community as well as a livable and healthy community. It will lead both to efficiency in the division and give us the flexibility in the current labor market conditions. Hans will recap the 2022 council passed utility rate study and along with the gap in the workload and throughput of backlog of projects with the street, storm, water, sewer, and parks. With that, I'll turn it over to Hans to give you a little more detail.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Hans Hunger, City Engineer. So I've been before you several times in the past to talk about current workload and what we've got. We've spent a lot of time together on the utility rate study, which passed by this council. I want to thank you for that. That included 90 utility projects that were identified to be done within the next 5-year time frame. In addition to that, we have active right now 45 projects that we're working on in some degree. Those are road projects, parks, facilities, all the different utilities there, and some ones that council initiated actions there. So it's quite a workload. And then on top of that, we've got 15 projects that right now have some degree of funding approved in budgets, but no capacity for staff to work on. So in this request here is we're really trying to get ourselves right staff for when we're asked to do a certain amount of workload, we have the staff to be able to process that. And I often feel like, for part of my job is to express the complexities that we're dealing with on why projects maybe don't move as fast as maybe the hope is of the public. Like, how hard can that be to put that in, and then try to explain the things that we're dealing with there that maybe take a little more time and energy and the expertise of engineering or capital staff to kind of navigate through. So the current staff that we have, and that I realize, we're down on 3rd floor. You don't always see us and stuff, but right now we have myself as a city engineer, as the one manager. we have 4 project engineers. They vary from senior staff level down to, we have journey and associate level. So there's 3 levels of engineering staff there. We share a half a person that was approved by council several years ago that we share with DPS, our Development Permitting Services. So half that person's time works on capital projects, half on development review. We have 2 capital inspectors, and as of the first of this year, now we have a second contract specialist. So we have been getting along with 1, but we really needed 2, and I thank you guys for approving that in last year's budget. So total of 9 staff there. On top of that, we augment with 2 outside project managers from Parametrics for project management. So this is a consultant managing a design consultant. And that's been a $260,000 contract to do that. A fairly expensive way to get projects through. And I would say in addition to this, we've used a variety of other stores. One of our stormwater engineers that normally, does other duties, has taken on 1 of our 2 of the projects now. And even Eric Johnson up in the council member's office has taken on some projects there. So we're using every resource we can to move projects along. But one of the things that we talked at length at last budget session was, based on the workload that we have and how much staff do we need? And so we did this and took 2 approaches to this. One being doing our own analysis to look at how many projects, how much time does those projects take to move through, both, the scoping, the design, the construction of them. We manage cradle to grave, and then how many staff would that be needed to administer that? And then we double check that with a comparison of 10 cities to see how are we comparing with comparable sized cities for capital engineering staff. What that identified was we have a current gap right now of 5 project managers, 1 inspector. We had a gap of 1 contract specialist, but that was filled last year with the budget, and then 2 managers. And so it's quite a gap in there. And I imagine, most cities feel that gap there. There's just more workload than you can possibly do. But really, the goal here is not to staff up beyond the needs of the city, but we're really trying to be very thought out on managing how much workload do we have, how much budget do we have, and do we have the right number of people to administer that? Which every year that you have project money sitting there and it goes undone, you're losing buying power because of inflation on that money. Prices go up. So one of the key things for doing this is really trying to get establish the flexibility in our program. Right now, we have project engineers working that 3 different levels of project engineers, but in the current market, engineers are very hard to find. When we advertised for the last project manager position that this council had authorized, it took us over a year to find the individual and fill that. So we advertised right after the budget was passed in 2022 in December. We filled that in February this year. So that's how hard it is. My experience has told me you don't need an engineer to manage every project. There are project managers out there that go through training for project management. It's not, they're hiring design consultants to do design. They need to put their time and energy to moving the project forward, keeping conversations going. So it doesn't need to be a project engineer for every project out there. So that's why we want to create the project management classification. We'll have 2 different levels of that, a senior project manager and just a project manager, but that'll give us flexibility on a broader pool of people that can apply for our projects. And then the other position that we're really asking for creation here is a brand new position at the city. It's a capital project supervisor or manager. And really where that's coming from is, as we identified in our gap analysis, we're spread pretty thin in the management group there, with myself managing that many individuals. And I'm pulled a lot of different ways on studies, on coordinating with other agencies. We've got a freeway being built up to the north of us that's in design with WashDOT. There's a tremendous amount of coordination that goes on there. Not enough to oversee not enough time to oversee the projects done by all the capital staff. And it is really crucial to have good oversight over those project managers, to make things sure we're doing things consistently with code, to the coordination to occur. Without that oversight, things can get missed, especially when you're dealing with newer staff that are trying to learn Puyallup's ways, or just, they're a little bit greener and they need that guidance there. And our senior engineers do a good job of this, I will say. They are, part of their time is spent kind of mentoring the newer engineers on how to do things and stuff. But they really need that supervisory level there, because they're leads, they're not supervisors there, to give that more guidance. And with you're juggling those 45 projects, it's really a key thing to get it right and take that time to be able to give that input. So that's where we need that project manager. Understand, this gets us partway through the gap, and we'll continue to evaluate. We've been tracking our time to projects now for over 2 years, where we're actually putting in the time that we spend on projects and then comparing it to how much we estimated the time it was going to take, and then revising estimates as we see needed. We take each project and we break these things down into there's high complexity, medium, and low. We assign project hours for that, and now we're tracking it and comparing it. And we've been including those amounts of estimates into the project budgets now, starting in 2023. So we have the funding for the staff in the projects, and that's really the key why on this slide it says no increase to the general fund. The money is coming out of the projects themselves to pay for these things. And when we allocate capital money to the projects, we should have the staff to be able to implement those. This is going to be achieved not just by the new positions, but all positions, working with Barbara Lopez in finance to make sure that as we are implementing projects, we're charging the staff time to the project, it's coming out of the project budget, and rebalancing that away from the general fund. Especially helps on the utility projects where we had the rate increase, we've got the funding there now, so we'll be able to implement those projects. And then some grants allow us to charge the staff time too. And we've been doing that now, especially the federal funded grants that we get. We charge back to that grant and get reimbursed on that. So with those three things, we're able to keep this from hitting the general fund. So with that, I want to, turn it back over to the mayor and certainly answer any questions that you have.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. By bringing on this additional staff, did I understand correctly that we wouldn't need those extra costs that we're paying for consultants? We could actually pedal that and focus it back internally?
With the project, with the current workload, we still will keep the consultants on, but we will start phasing those consultant project managers out. So currently we work on both the Wildwood sidewalk, the 23rd sidewalk, a intersection improvement at 12th and Pioneer, where we're replacing the signal, and Meeker Festival Street design. So as those projects get completed, we will start to phase out the use of the consultant project managers there.
So in other words, you'll continue to use them for the things that are already in the pipeline, but new projects coming in would be handled internally. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd be trying not to assign even projects currently in the pipeline. I'd not try to not assign anything new to them, just get them through their current projects.
Right. So it gradually would be weaned off, or at least greatly minimized.
Yes. And I value, I value the flexibility they gave us to kind of increase and get some projects done during crunch times there. But it's one other thing that's not ideal in addition to the expenses. This is people that are learning as they're doing these projects. I'd rather have our own staff learning and becoming expertise there and retain those.
Yeah, it makes sense. I can see the wisdom of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Whitting.
Yeah, I applaud this approach. I've been advocating for additional staffing for some time, and the key to it is as you say, being able to capture their costs within the project and the project funding, and it also allows us to queue up our projects for grant funding. I think we miss out on various kinds of grants because we don't have things that are are far enough through the design process to do so. So I strongly support this, and there's no hit to the general fund. So I'm a strong advocate here.
Thank you, Councilmember Whitting. Any further comments? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, oh, by the way, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, resolution passes. Let's move on to number 8, other business. We have the Puyallup Library Strategic Plan. We love strategic plans. So please come forward.
We love library.
We love libraries, yes, more specifically. Nicole, please.
Okay, well, good evening, Mayor and Council. It's nice to see you. Thanks for having us. So we're just gonna go over the strategic plan. I know you had a chance to look at it already. So we'll just pick out our favorite parts and then let you ask any questions that you might have. I do want to introduce you to Stellan Harris. He's our teen librarian, and Aaliyah Stone, who is our library services manager. Okay. I've got my notes on paper here, so. Okay, so we're just gonna go look at the library overview and mission. We're gonna go over the SWOT analysis, our balanced scorecard framework, and the library goals. We have a lot of metrics where we measure our success and can tell you about the library, but I think what we can look at as kind of just a meaningful placeholder is that we have almost 54,000 card holders as of last month. And if last Saturday was any indication, we're probably close to 54,000 because we were really busy. So that's going up all the time. Our mission, the library mission, is to welcome all to gather, learn, create, and to be inspired. And this is our SWOT analysis that we created as a leadership team and with the help of Talika, yay. And so I think what I'd like to point out is our strengths. I would actually point to bullet point number 3. It's the staff. The team is passionate, skilled, resourceful, and provides excellent frontline customer service. Really, this is the heart of the library and where all of our services come from. Our weakness, I think our major weakness is to keep up with, maintain, or replace rapidly evolving library technology. And I would say actually just keeping up with technology in general. I have an Apple phone. I am at the desk and someone's asking me about how to interface with the library with their Samsung. It's keeping up with all technology, but also our internal and external services, systems for accessing the catalog and everything. Opportunities, strengthen partnerships with other libraries, community organizations, and the school district. We're always looking for opportunities there. Even today, we partnered with our neighbors at Pierce County Library System and Tacoma Public Library as the Pierce Council declared Pierce County as participating in the Read Across America from March 2nd through the 9th. So we were there. And so we like to, we have reciprocal agreements with all of them. So we like to have a seamless service throughout the county. But there's partnerships with all of our community organizations and support systems. I would say threats, something that stands out to us is just the disruptive behavior of community members dealing with challenges relating to homelessness, mental health, and substance abuse. And again, we partner with a lot of other departments here at the city who are very, very supportive of us, as well as outside organizations. So we do use the balanced scorecard framework, and that's how we build our goals. So I'll just kind of go over our strategic goals: to foster the public library as our community's hub for enrichment, connection, and lifelong learning. And Next, I would say enhance the library's capacity by improving staff training and technology systems used by both staff and patrons. And to enhance accessibility and usability of library resources to improve processes for patrons and staff. And to optimize financial resources and technological capabilities for improved budget planning and resource management. And that's a very quick overview of our strategic plan. Did you have any questions for us?
Any questions, members? Thank you very much for that presentation. Just so that everyone knows, the balanced scorecard concept was actually developed by two individuals, Harvard professors, Kaplan and Norton, who became very famous by presenting a balanced scorecard that tries to look at 4 different areas. And by doing so, you take a balanced approach to your organization in its succeeding. And I appreciate you actually using that as a template. You know, it's important that we look at the finances, the customer service, your internal operation. You know, and you've done all of those aspects. And then therefore moving forward, you do in a balanced, more comprehensive way. So kudos to you for that. So with that, Councilmember Gilliam.
Thank you, Mayor Castma. Nicole, I just wanted to commend you. So I'm currently on the Puyallup Library Foundation Board, and Nicole does a phenomenal job of connecting with the community, keeping everybody in the loop on what's going on, engaging people and inspiring more connection. And so I just wanted to highlight your incredible work with your team. I know you're also a recent library director, and you're doing a phenomenal job. So I just wanted to commend you.
Thank you. Can you say that again? Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Okay. Any further comments by council members? If not, thank you very much for coming forward. We are looking forward to the team, facility, and
it's coming along.
Okay, good. You do excellent work and we appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You're welcome. Okay, with that, we're going to now, absent any other requests, we're going to move on to the city manager's report. Steve Kirkley, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yeah, only one item just to highlight this evening, Mayor Castma and Council, is if you would like to comment, the community and council, I know, comment on the EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement for the project that is occurring in Pierce County, the warehouses that are a Pierce County project. The deadline for that is March 15th, and you can go on our website and we have a whole page dedicated to that. So the comment deadline is March 15th. You still have a couple more weeks to comment on this project. It is within Pierce County. It's within the Pierce County jurisdiction. The city is simply just looking at the environmental impacts from that. After the public comment is submitted, then the staff and consultant will review that comment and eventually come out with a final environmental impact statement. All that's out there right now is a draft environmental impact statement. So just wanted to bring that to council's attention. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question regarding that, actually. The EIS we put forward, is it correct that that could be challenged in court?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. I heard a legal question and I just reacted. Yes, it is possible that it could be challenged. Not immediately. It has to reach a certain stage, but yes, there is a point when it could be challenged.
And that could be challenged by the county too, correct?
Yes, the county could choose to challenge the impact statement, the EIS, as well as the developer who is applying for the development, as well as concerned citizens who are impacted.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that clarification. Let's move on to council reports. Councilmember Johnson. Okay, Councilmember Adler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to be brief here. Just want to highlight a couple of events that myself and several of my colleagues up here attended over the last week. First of all, the Puyallup Sumner Chamber of Commerce annual gala and awards was on Friday night, and I won't take the mayor's thunder of sharing what piece of hardware he was able to take home on behalf of the city, but it was a terrific night in a full room over at the pavilion with a lot of community members celebrating our businesses. On Saturday night, I had the honor and privilege of attending the dedication ceremony, naming the Pierce College Fort Steilacoom Gym, now named the Dr. Michelle L. Johnson Gymnasium at the Fort Steilacoom campus. As noted earlier this evening, Dr. Johnson is the former chancellor, a 45-year career veteran of Pierce College. She is now Chancellor Emeritus. We had a terrific council retreat last week, and just want to thank the mayor for a very productive 2 days, and really express my gratitude to staff. Long days and long nights, but it was really great to spend time together and talk about some big issues before us. Certainly want to thank my colleagues here for supporting the Women's History Month proclamation, which was the first Women's History Month proclamation to be issued in the city of Puyallup. It was a great turnout tonight. This is a great first step. Much more work to do, but I very much appreciate council's support and commitment to ensuring that we create more and more opportunities for women to lead here in the city and throughout the community. And then finally, I am not the expert to speak on this, but I do want to highlight, related to the incident that happened Sunday evening near Peach Park. It looks like there will be a public meeting tomorrow night, the 28th of February, at the library at 6 p.m. on the incident, a community meeting. I plan to be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Adler. Councilmember Gilliam.
Thank you, Mayor Castma. I'm going to try not to repeat anything that Lauren said, but I do want to step in and say well done, Lauren, for putting together the Women History Proclamation. I also wanted to take a second to highlight some powerful women on our staff. And I hope I don't forget anybody. So we have Katie with HR, we have Barbara Lopez with finance, we have Talika in project management, our city manager office. We have some really fabulous people on staff. And then let us not forget Miss Nicole from the library. I don't know if you all got mentioned, but I want to mention the women on the city team that are nailing it. So I'm going to move right along. I had the opportunity to go on a ride along with our police, and my eyes are very open to, I really hope our citizens have opportunity to go on ride-alongs. Please, please, please make a request. I can't tell you after that experience how much my respect has, it was already there, but just could continue to increase for our professionalism, the care and compassion of our officers, but also how important it is for our city to have its own jail. I don't want to go into too much detail. I'm open to anybody who wants to talk about it, but bottom line is accountability is very important, and our Pierce County jail simply is not sufficient. I saw that firsthand. So that's all I'm going to say from the dais right now. I also am part of the Main Street Association liaison from the city for them, and they did a huge shout out for Cody and his fabulous work with all of our plants around in the community. Apparently they said, hey, Cody, and you're like right on it and took care of it. So they did a shout out for you at the meeting, as well as for Chief Engel. He made an appearance and gave an update, and our local Main Street feel very supported by him. So all in all, our city is doing a really great job of connecting to the needs of our community, and I'm very proud to be a witness of that. Thank you, Mayor Castma.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilliam. Councilmember Whitting.
I'm going to pass tonight.
Councilmember Dorr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be brief. Just want to share that I am in DC lobbying for next generation 911. The technology that we have that is allowing me to participate in this meeting shows how quickly things change. And so we're back here trying to get more resources for that. I was reelected as chair of the 911 board again at the last board meeting. So we still have that position there. Other than that, it is midnight here, so I am gonna be quiet. I have to get up and get to work again in the morning. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us, Councilmember Dorr. We appreciate that. You doing that despite the fact that you're what, East Coast time? Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much. We're going to adjourn here briefly. I just want to make one comment. I am very interested in the public understanding that warehouse project off Shaw Road and the EIS that Puyallup did. I mentioned earlier that the city of Puyallup fought to do that EIS because we wanted to define some mitigation that we thought we could get from that project to mitigate its impact in Puyallup. But the dialogue that I had with the city manager is very important for people to know, is that just because we put forward the EIS like that, we're trying to be as favorable as we possibly can towards the people of Puyallup. But there is a chance that it could, in fact, be even litigated in the future, of which we will fight, because we want to make sure that that project is mitigated to the greatest extent possible. But it has been a tug of war situation. And I think the public needs to understand that we did not approve that. We're trying to make the best of a bad situation. And I think that statement has to come out. Public has to understand the motive behind everyone up here. So with that, I'm going to, no further comments. I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.